is another edition, a special edition of your voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. Another edition, a special 2-hour edition of Beyond Reason Radio, where I'm your, like I said, I'm your voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. I usually do this show every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. on my website, beyondreasonradio.com, which we are broadcasting on my website right now and the Beyond Reason Radio app as well. And we are on Facebook Live as well. So if you like me on Facebook, if you like Beyond Reason Radio on Facebook, if you like WFLA Orlando on Facebook, we are there broadcasting live as well. But tonight, like I said, not only are we on Beyond Reason Radio, but we're on WFLA, my flagship station, where I produce Good Morning Orlando every morning, co-host Good Morning Orlando every morning, and co-host the Florida Roundtable, which plays on this station on Saturday nights. But we are going to do Beyond Reason Radio because there is a lot of stuff to talk about that is absolutely beyond reason. And we'll talk about stuff. I'm going to do, by the way, I'm joined by executive producer Mr. Michael Formisano. Hey, Mike.
Good evening.
We're going to do Mike's favorite segment later in the show. We're going to do it twice, I think, since it's a special 2-hour show.
I think it's only necessary that we do it twice.
Yes, there we go.
But I will prepare myself, though, because there's never any telling what kind of story you're going to have ready for us.
I know. You're right. I find them. I have stories so beyond reason, they will leave you, and they left me flabbergasted. Not only that, but at 7:30, we're going to be talking with a special guest, Cindy Ewell, who is running for Seminole County committee woman, and she's going to talk a little bit about that. But first, by the way, you can call 407-916-5400, text to 23680, comment on the app, or comment on Facebook Live. So, Mike, today is just Apology Day. It's everybody's apologizing.
That is so true.
Today, it's apparently...
Wait, what are you talking about? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll let you finish.
Okay.
See what I did there? That was apology. Okay.
Yes.
I'll move on.
Yes, that was a little weak. But we have the apology from Mr. Ryan Lochte, who apologized. He said it was bad judgment. He said, well, everyone knows that he lied. Everyone knows that he lied about being robbed, which is like, why would you lie? Apparently he lied because they vandalized a bathroom and had to pay before they would let them leave. Is it too much to ask, Mike? Is it too much to ask our Olympic medalists, our Olympic athletes, to not get really drunk and take a taxi out and vandalize a bathroom and embarrass our country in front of the rest of the world?
Oh, yeah, that's way too much to ask.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
When you go overseas, when I go overseas, my main goal is to embarrass myself in my country. That's just as an American, that's what I do, right?
Okay, I see. Apparently that's what we do. Apparently it's too much to ask.
But only, when I bleach my hair. That's all.
That should have been our first warning. When he bleached his hair, that should have been our first warning that he was a tool. So.
It was a flag, but I was hoping for better.
But he apologized, Mike, so you feel better?
Oh, yeah, everything's, fine now.
Everything's better?
Everything's just great.
Oh, okay, because there's another apology. I want to see how you feel about this one.
Oh, boy. I have an idea where this is going.
Somebody else apologized for everything, and we'll have to see.
For everything? We'll have to see, huh? Pretty
much. I have some audio here, Mike, of Trump. Trump came out in the speech, and everybody's saying that this was a great speech. Everybody is saying that, it came from the heart, Mike.
What
it
heart?
Was. I know. Mike hates Trump. Actually, Trump had a really good week, and actually, Trump did a lot of things that I like.
Yeah, did he get a gold star this week?
No, Mike is so biased against Trump.
I am, but that's here nor there.
Okay,
right now.
But I'll go over. There's good things, some really good things that Trump did this week, and some really bad things that Trump did this week. So I'm going to go over the good and the bad of Trump. We're going to do that later in the show. Like I said, we have 2 hours, but I'm not going to be able to get it all in. I can never get it all in this show. So, but Trump apologized, and if you can get that audio ready, Mike, the first cut there, he said this. We'll see if Mike feels better after this.
Just as we won the Cold War in part.
Oops, wrong one. Wrong one. Do the second cut. That was my fault. Second cut. I'm going to get to that cut soon. Second cut. Play it.
Sometimes,
there we go.
In the heat of debate and speaking on a multitude of issues, you don't choose the right words or you say the wrong thing. I have done that.
Yes.
And believe it or not,
because they know it's
I
true.
regret it.
I don't know why they're chanting Trump now. Thank you.
And I do regret it, particularly where it may have caused personal pain.
So there you go. So Ryan Lochte apologized because he embarrassed our country, and now Trump has apologized for all his personal attacks, all his really bad comments, especially at people like Ted Cruz, Ben Carson, Megyn Kelly, Carly Fiorina, and a bunch of other people I could name. He said he's sorry. He said he actually really regrets it. He just got caught up in the heat of the moment, Mike. So now everyone's saying he's showing his emotional side, showing his personal side. And so there you go. Now you're going to vote for him, Mike? Is it settled?
You know, Mike, an old saying comes to mind.
Yes, uh-oh.
I think it goes something like, fool me once.
Mm-hmm.
Shame on you.
No.
Fool me twice. You ain't going to fool me again. That was a joke.
I remember when Bush did that, yes.
No, but you see where I'm going with this.
Yes.
I am a true believer that actions speak louder than words. So we're just going to have to see where this goes.
We'll have to see. I think
he hasn't won my vote yet. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I kind of figured. Okay. I just wanted to get that out there that it's apparently the days of apologies. Mike, I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm sorry for yet, but I'm sorry for. You're
just going with the mood of the day. That's all.
I'm sorry for always being right, Mike. Is that work?
Oh no, don't be sorry about that.
Okay, good, because I'm really not. Okay, speaking of always being right, I have an article here that's very interesting. If it lets me sign in, apparently it's not going to let me do that. But I think Trump. Speaking of Trump, we're not going to talk about Trump the whole show, by the way. I just want to let people know that. I know there's probably a lot of Trump burnout out there. So we all know that Trump visited Louisiana today, visited Baton Rouge, visited the floods, which actually, I'm not going to lie, that's a very smart political move. It just is. Because Obama's getting a lot of criticism right now for not showing up. And really, the main reason Obama's getting that criticism is because he criticized Bush for showing up late. He criticized Bush for doing a flyover. All of them criticized Bush for that. And now Obama doesn't show up, and it's like, well, the governor doesn't want him there. They always come up with excuses. It's very convenient of them to do that. So I just wanted to say, that aside, we're not going to talk about Trump all the time, but I'm going to get to a sound cut in a second. That proves to me, I think, that Trump listens to my show. We always talk about this because I'll say things and then I'll hear them repeat it, and usually it's like weeks later, and I'm like, these people have to listen to my show. They have to. But I found an article here, first off. I found an article here from the American Thinker. And it really got me thinking because we talk about radical Islam a lot on this show. I don't mince words when it comes to our enemy, like some other people do. I talk about they're the real enemy. I talk about why they hate us. I talk about the roots of where that comes from. And if you don't believe me, because there's a lot of people, even Obama. I talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago, actually. Obama came out and he says, well, the reason why we have terrorists and everything is it's all economic. They just want good jobs. The terrorists, they just want good jobs. They just want economic opportunity. That's it. There you go. Mike's giving me a confused look. That's what I thought. But no, really, that's what a lot of people think, that it's all about economics. Even though a lot of the terrorists that have attacked here had decent jobs, had economic opportunity. We're educated in our schools. We're given the opportunity here. The Boston Bombers the same way. The Orlando shooter the same way. None of that is what really convinced them to do what they did. None of that is what the real problem was. So what is the real problem? Well, I found this from the American Thinker, and they got this, believe it or not. If you don't believe my words, let's believe their words. They got this from the Al-Qaeda Reader, from Al-Qaeda themselves. They posted something, and it's a translation, obviously, because they're going to speak in Arabic, and I cannot speak Arabic. I'm sorry. But they posted why, and this is actually the Islamic State, they give 6 reasons why they hate us, they hate America, and they hate Western civilization. This is what they said. Listen carefully. We hate you first and foremost because you are disbelievers and you reject the oneness of Allah, whether you realize it or not. By making partners for him in worship, you blaspheme against him, claiming that he has a son, Christ. You fabricate lies against his prophets and messengers, and you indulge in all manner of devilish practices. I don't hear anything about economic opportunity. I don't hear anything about, oh, well, we bombed Iraq, or we were over there, or we traded for oil. That's why they hate us. No, that's not what they're mentioning here. It goes on. It is for this reason that we were commanded to openly declare our hatred for you and our enmity towards you. There has already been for you an excellent example in Abraham and those with him when they said to their people, indeed, we are disassociated from you and from whatever you worship other than Allah. He said, this is from the Al-Qaeda Reader. This is ISIS telling us why they hate us. We have rejected you, and there has arisen between us and you enmity and hatred forever until you believe in Allah alone. So that is our goal. That is their goal, to create the caliphate, to radically transform our civilization to their radical ideology, their radical interpretation of the Quran. And they won't stop until they do that, because that's what they believe. And they believe we're the biggest threat to that expansion. Furthermore, just as your disbelief is the primary reason we hate you, your disbelief is the primary reason we fight you. As we have been commanded to fight the disbelievers until they submit to the authority of Islam, either by becoming Muslims or by paying jizya for those afforded this option, people of the book, and living in humiliation under the rule of Muslims. It's just amazing to me how we try to make excuses for the enemy. We try to give them the benefit of the doubt instead of actually listening to what they are saying, what they are telling us. Well, why do I bring this up? I bring it up because, first and foremost, as I've said over and over and over in this show, it's a war of ideas. It's a war against a radical ideology. And to them, it's that. To them, they will not be happy until their radical ideology is realized throughout the world. But to us, we try to make it not like that. We're too afraid to promote American values. We're too afraid to promote, Western civilization values of free markets and freedom of religion and tolerance. So we're afraid while they are not. And they will keep fighting until we can win the ideological battle, spread it throughout the world, and make them insignificant. And we have to destroy the centers of the terrorist groups militarily. There's no doubt about that. But you've heard me talk about this a lot of times before. You've heard me mention this a lot of times before on this show. Well, that's why I think Trump listens to the show. Because Trump this week, he had actually some pretty good speeches this week. Okay. And he this week actually mentioned something that I have been saying forever. It almost came, I could have written this for him. I didn't. And some people would have believed it. Here is what he said. If you could play that first Trump cut. This is what he said. Is this not what I have been saying forever?
Just as we won the Cold War in part by exposing the evils of communism and the virtues of free markets, so too must we take on the ideology of radical Islam. We should only admit into this country those who share our values and respect our people. I call it extreme vetting. Assimilation is not an act of hostility, but an expression of compassion.
I want to focus on the first part of that cut. He said, just like we showed that communism doesn't work, the evils of communism, the ideology, we have to do the same with the ideology of radical Islam and show how evil it is. I think I've given that exact example, that exact comparison on my show before. I think I've said that before, those very words. Like I said, I think he listens to this show because for once he is exactly right, in my opinion. That's why it's important to name the enemy. That's why it's important to understand that it's a war of ideas, as I've said before. We're going to talk a lot more beyond reason politics, more of the good and the bad from Trump this week. We're also going to talk to Cindy Cooper Ewell, who is running for Seminole County committee woman, and she's going to talk about exactly what a committee man or a committee woman does, and that was what intrigued me to bring her on the show, was because I'm very curious, actually, what they do, and I often, I think it's important for regular citizen activists to run for office if they can, to change things from the inside. So you are listening to Beyond Reason Radio on BeyondReasonRadio.com, the Beyond Reason Radio app, and special edition live tonight on News Radio 102.5 WFLA.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio. If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Now, back to Beyond Reason Radio.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your voice of reason in a world that is, beyond reason. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. You can call in at 407-916-5400 or text to 23680. We're also on the Beyond Reason Radio app. And if you miss any of the show, you can catch the podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts are available. We're going to be talking to Cindy Ewell, who is running for Seminole County committee woman. And basically, I'm really just curious what that role entails. Why? Because she's really just an ordinary citizen activist. She's not, I don't think she's ever run for office before or anything. So we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But I have some, and by the way, Facebook Live was having some problems, but it seems to be working now. If you go to my Facebook page at Beyond Reason Radio, you'll find that. So, one thing that is beyond reason, and maybe this should leave me flabbergasted, but at this point it doesn't. It doesn't at all, and it's something I've talked a little bit about before in the show. But this transgender stuff, I just can't anymore with the transgender stuff, Mike. I just can't deal with it anymore. Okay, here's why. I talked about on my last show how they're spreading around a cartoon. This group's spreading around a cartoon around schools where you can color in. It has a unicorn, and you can color in its gender identity. Whatever it feels like it is, you can color that in and choose it. And you're teaching kids all about the wonders of transgenderism. But it gets even worse. Teachers in Charlotte, North Carolina, have been advised to stop calling the children boys and girls, according to a training presentation on transgender issues. Instead, the progressives who control Charlotte Mecklenburg, I don't know where that is, schools, they want teachers to identify the youngsters as either students or scholars. So to offend, you don't want to offend anyone. If that little boy thinks he's a little girl, you don't call him a boy. No. You call him a scholar Oh, doesn't that make them feel good? What if they're not very smart either? Do we still call them scholars? I guess you could just call them students. The transgender guidelines, which will go into effect later this month, range from the absurd to the downright outrageous. For example, boys who identify as girls will be permitted to participate on overnight all-girl field trips. That's the first time I read that one. Okay. That's a rule sure to be a hit among 13-year-olds. That's what the article says. I grabbed this from ToddStarnes.com, by the way.
You're the duck blue because I've never seen a blue duck before, and to be honest with you, I wanted to see a blue duck.
It's Billy Madison, in case you didn't know that out there.
I remember that. Thanks for that, Mike. That's where our schools are now. Okay. Involvement of parents in the plan is determined in working with the student, considering the student's age and health, well-being, and safety concerns. Staff must take care not to out a student to others, including the parents of an older student, with the student's consent. In contacting the parents, use the student's name, pronoun on birth certificate unless student or parent says otherwise. Is this really where we are now? Is this, I just can't anymore with this. And we know the news today that Obama has ordered all federal facilities to be open to transgender bathrooms. So if you go into the bathroom you identify with, Target has decided to build a third bathroom for unisex, for people who are of either gender. Oh, here we go. The workshop at these North Carolina schools is titled Transgender 101. Help teachers to learn to define and use important terms and concepts related to gender identity and identify issues facing transgender and gender expansive students. The article says how the teachers in Charlotte are going to have time to teach the kids driver's ed and English 101 is beyond me. Well, you can teach English, I guess. You just can't teach what a boy or girl means, I guess. I don't know. I guess that could be offensive as well. I don't know anymore. Our culture. I swear. I have no other reason of sharing this story other than that it's just beyond reason, and my problem isn't with opening up bathrooms, really, or letting them use other bathrooms, even though I think that's wrong too. The real problem I have with all this is we're just now accepting transgenderism as normal, as it's okay. When we know that most people, well, for one, it takes out truth in society. So when we know that the truth is of someone, you're a boy if you have boy parts, and you're a girl if you have girl parts, we can just know that's the truth. We don't want to talk about truth anymore. But the other thing is, there might be a lot of these people that really need psychological help. Yes, I'm actually going to say that. I actually am going to admit that. But we don't want to admit that someone might have problems anymore. We just want to accept their problems. It's not good for the civil society. It really isn't. When you start taking away cultural norms like this. Just saying. All right, we're going to talk with Cindy Ewell, who's running for Seminole County Committee Woman. Next, you're listening to Beyond Reason Radio here at BeyondReasonRadio.com and News Radio 102.5 WFLA. We'll be right back.
Download the iHeartRadio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I am your host, Michael Yaffee, the conscience in your ear. telling you the difference between right and wrong. You're listening to Beyond Reason Radio. I do this show every Monday and Friday live at BeyondReasonRadio.com and the Beyond Reason Radio app. And this is a special 2-hour edition of Beyond Reason Radio right here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. If you missed any of my old shows, just download the Beyond Reason Radio app, or you can catch them on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. So I'm going to talk with a friend of mine who is running for local office. Now, she is usually just a regular citizen, but she was active in local Tea Party groups because she wanted to get involved and wanted to make a difference. But now she's deciding to run for office. I wanted to get her on because this is really an example of just regular citizen activists wanting to make a difference and saying, look, I got to run for office and I got to start somewhere. I'm speaking now with Cindy Cooper Ewell. And Cindy, how are you today?
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me on your show tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. No problem. So tell me a little bit about, first, why you decided to run. You're running for Seminole County Committeewoman. Is that correct?
Yes, it's called State Committeewoman, and that is the office I'm running for.
All right. Go ahead.
It's a Republican Party position, so only Republicans can vote for this, this election. And, absentee ballots have gone out. Early voting will start Saturday, and primary day is on the 30th.
All right. And so tell me a little bit, one, what that position entails, because I think there's a lot of people out there that probably have no idea. And two,
right.
Why you decided to run for office, take that step and actually run for office.
Well, the first question about what that job is, and, honestly, I will say to listeners that the Republican Party at the local level actually have a lot of best-kept secrets. And then you might wonder, well, why are they best-kept secrets? And back in 2009, I got involved locally after the election of 2008, which changed my life about how I saw my place in holding government in check. And I realized at the time that more than voting was going to be it was going to take more than voting.
Yeah, you were actually going to make a difference from the inside.
Yes, things were so out of control. But this particular job allows a citizen to come in and affect the direction of the Republican Party. The same way, another best-kept secret is the local executive committee, because right now it's controlled in Seminole County by the politicians. And when you have an executive committee that's controlled by the politicians, you can imagine the mischief, because there's no one holding them accountable. And so I got in there and I started seeing that happen. And then I began to understand that there was so much corruption there, it was hard to, let's just say it was beyond, from their viewpoint, I think they thought it was beyond reason for the local citizens to get involved and disrupt their political country club.
So you feel like the Republican Party, especially locally, is definitely going in the wrong direction.
It's hard for everyday citizens to join because they like to handpick who they want on this committee,
right,
so that they can elect their officers each year. And the rules are kind of funny because there's supposed to be one set of rules. But when it comes to citizens like you and me wanting to join, the rules are a lot stricter. So,
really? And you think that's done purposefully so ordinary citizens basically don't want to get involved?
They want to discourage average citizens from getting involved because we're a threat, because we bring accountability. And I know this for a fact because I started seeing stuff last year when they did not really want any of my friends to join. papers were not out on the membership table for people to be able to, apply. And then it was, well, I'm so sorry, they'll just have to attend another month. And they were saying that it was 3 months in a row, so that meant my friends would have to attend 4 in a row. So I just decided that they needed an assistant at the membership table, so I offered my services. And it gave me a good bird's eye view of what was happening, and it was disturbing. And because the rules were one way for their folks, and then the average citizen, there were different rules and requirements for us, and then papers started being lost and all this kind of chaos.
Well, I gotta ask you, Cindy, if I'm just a regular guy listening on the radio right now, driving, has no plans to run for office, just a regular average voter, tell that voter why they should care about who is in this position and why, of course, they should vote for you.
Well, the reason is because I found out that the state committee woman actually has some influence at the state level. She is the liaison between the state and county parties, so she attends 4 meetings a year. They're called quarterly meetings. 2 are in Tampa, 2 are in Orlando. And she learns what's going on at the state level and then informs, like, the local parties, the, clubs, women's clubs and all, what's happening. And then she informs the people at the executive committee. But more than that, there's the opportunity to serve on the Rules Committee, the Platform Committee, and other committees that determine the whole direction of the Republican Party in Florida. So you get to have a vote and a voice to vote on the next Republican Party chairman. If you get to help guide, let's just say, whether or not we're going to keep God in our platform, or we're going to keep traditional marriage in our platform.
Yeah, well, that's true. And as I talked about in the last segment with the whole transgender stuff, that stuff is really worth fighting for, I think, right now, especially in the Republican Party, because I think there are a lot of people in the party who are perfectly happy with getting rid of those things in the platform. Right. They want to go away from those things because they think it hurts the party, even though it helps them. Real quick, Cindy, I got a call from someone who I think wants to give you some praise. Jody in Sanford, how are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. I just wanted to say, go get 'em, girl. We're praying for you. I've known her for a while, and she's been sharing these, and it would have been so easy for her to step aside and say, oh, well, that's just the way it is, but it's not the kind of lady she is, and we're so proud. And definitely have my vote, love.
Right. Awesome. Thank you, Jody, so much. Go ahead, Cindy.
That is just so sweet, and it's so encouraging. Yes, and it's keeping the party accountable, essentially, is what it boils down to. Do we want to stay more small government the way our party was founded, lining up with the Constitution and Bill of Rights, or are we going to veer more like the Democrats and be big government? We also determined the Republican National Convention delegates to the convention in 2020.
Wow.
And what I would like to do is see it basically become where people do their complaining, and I take those complaints to the state level and say, listen, this is what I'm hearing in Seminole County, and I'd like you to know about this.
Sounds like you want to be a voice for the people. I mean, it's exactly. I mean, Trump talks about that a lot, but it sounds like you actually would be, at least locally, a literal voice for the people.
It should be a two-way conversation. Yes, there are things that they will want to communicate to us, but what they're missing out on is that the base is being unheard, unappreciated, and undervalued. And it disturbs me to see so many wanting to leave the party. And the only way this party can be healed and kept together, and that is, number one, you heard me talk about the executive committee and treating people 2 different ways. They've got to treat the people the same, period. And no funny business. That's got to stop. And then they've got to listen at the state level to us. And, if we have this happening across our state where more people are running for this office, and I know a number of friends are doing that now for the first time in their life, like me, they're running for office, and we can actually strengthen the Republican Party back toward its founding principles. And, if there's somebody that is well-liked enough, they could even be nominated to be the next party chairman.
Gotcha. It's Mrs. Ewell going to Washington. Just real quick, Cindy, do you have a website or any way that they can find out more information about you?
Sure. It's CindyEwell.org, and that's Cindy, YOUELL.org.
Yes, and she will be on the ballot if you are in the Republican Party locally. I believe the elections, it's the same day as the primaries and everything. Am I correct? So August 29th, I believe?
It's August the 30th.
Oh, 30th. That was the day off. Okay, good.
Right. And it's one of the seats along with county commissioner and state committee man and this sort of thing. Clerk of court, they're all on the same ballot.
Gotcha. Cindy, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and God bless you all, and I so appreciate the support of these great people who listen to your show.
Right. Thank you so much, Cindy. Good person. I just thought it was very interesting with her because I've known her for a little while, and she's just a regular person. She got involved in local tea parties, and she's like, look, things need to change on the local level, and I'm going to run for office. And you know what? I respect that. I really do. I don't know if I would ever do it. Some people say I should. I think they're crazy, but I respect anyone who is willing to go, willing to do that. And by the way, I'm getting some comments on Facebook as well, Facebook Live, which you can listen to. People really like what she had to say. So if you like what she had to say, go out and vote for her in the election. Okay. The end of hour number 1 is coming up, and you know what that means. Story so beyond reason, they left me flabbergasted. This is Beyond Reason Radio here at BeyondReasonRadio.com and News Radio 102.5 WFLA.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at Facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Now, back to Beyond Reason Radio.
Yes, this is Beyond Reason Radio, your voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. I am your host, Michael Yaffee. I usually do this show every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. at BeyondReasonRadio.com, but this is a special edition here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA, which we're doing 7 to 9 p.m. special 2-hour edition of Beyond Reason Radio. And I figure, I usually end the show with this when I do the podcast, and I figured I would end each hour with this today. What is it, Mike?
Are you asking what the segment is?
Yes.
I wasn't sure if you wanted to play this outcut yet. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are unfamiliar with this segment, you better prepare yourself, because it's the one and only segment that is so outrageous, it left Mike flabbergasted.
Yes, it did. So, Mike, you ready? You ready?
I'm ready.
This? You ready?
This
one will leave you flabbergasted. I'm very curious about your reaction to this one.
Okay. I'm scared.
You should be. Okay. I got this from the Daily Mail. Scientists, some noted scientists out there, discussed how you could survive a zombie outbreak.
Twinkies, right?
Twinkies, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything about Twinkies.
I was always raised to believe in the Twinkies.
in the Twinkies, you were raised to believe in Twinkies. So you're like, you're like a little Mikey, and your mom's like, now little Mikey, if there's ever a zombie outbreak, don't worry, we have Twinkies.
It's all about the hostess.
All right.
We've been conditioned. Is that a better term?
Condition. Yes. I think we have been conditioned. All right. The site This is leaving me flabbergasted right now because the site is not loading for some reason. It is very annoying to me. Come on. But some noted scientists decided that they were going to discuss. Here we go. They were going to discuss if we could survive a zombie outbreak. Ready for the strategies? This is how we could survive. This actually happened. There was a conference and everything, just in case, Mike, the zombie outbreak happens. Daily Mail notices says zombie films often end with a miracle cure or the arrival of the army to save the day. But what would happen if a new disease started converting humans into zombie-like state, and could we stop it? Writing in the conversation, some noted scientists out there from different universities and web technologies, they attempt to answer the question. They say that looking at how we might deal with a zombie scenario can tell about how a genuine, highly infectious condition might spread, as well as how society may prepare. Do they know something we don't? This is what
maybe
kind of
all of these stories and shows and movies
preparing
are just
us.
preparing us for the real deal.
Yeah, maybe Zika's heading us. And
oh no.
Mike hates Zika. All right, here we go. Here's some strategies. One strategy is to quarantine infected people while developing a cure. Okay. Seems kind of obvious, but if you watch The Walking Dead, it seemed extremely difficult to quarantine the infected people. Those zombies, they can get pretty fast when they're hungry. I don't know.
Not only that, but they don't really feel the pain, so they'll just keep pushing on.
This is very true. Scientists could also choose to eradicate everyone in the infected area. Now, when they say eradicate, does that mean destroy, or does that mean...
That sounds like destroy to me.
That's like the movie Outbreak, where they almost destroyed a city.
Or that video game Last of Us. Have you ever played that?
No, I have not.
I'm not a big video game person, but this game is mind-blowing.
Really? Okay. Another option is a selective cull to remove the infective individuals. Right. So that's pretty harsh.
Pretty dark, huh?
Pretty dark. It says, imagine if a new zombieism disease broke out that spread through commonly portrayed method of infected saliva. The kind of direct contact spread would normally be quite an inefficient method for disease transmission compared to airborne infections, which can be spread more easily. But zombieism is interesting because, like rabies, I love how this article is legit writing this like this is actually a thing, that it's actually possible, that it's actually, I told you, it leaves me flabbergasted. So zombies will actively try to bite or eat their victims, thereby spreading the disease faster. So they're saying it won't be as bad because it won't be airborne, but I don't know. Did you see World War Z, by the way?
That we know of.
Yeah, true. Like I said, what are they not telling us, Mike?
How can you report what hasn't happened yet?
That's true. Maybe there is a zombieism that is airborne.
Could be airborne via Zika.
But I'm telling you right via Zika. It does kind of leave people deformed, or at least babies deformed. Yeah, zombie babies. What's really interesting, though, did you see the movie World War Z, by the way, Mike? With Brad Pitt?
Oh, yeah.
Those zombies were scary.
Yeah.
Because they were like super fast, super strong, super crazy, no way to escape.
Well, that's like that game I was just telling you about.
I think we might need to play this game.
You really should. Because the difference between this and a lot of the movies and stuff like that, where just the dead come back to life. Mm-hmm. This one's an infection that takes place in your brain, and it grows in your brain and makes you more and more like a zombie. Until
all right,
it's too late.
I think maybe we should all play that game to prepare ourselves. By the way, here's some other advice. We could outrun them. That would only work if they were zombies like in The Walking Dead. Don't try reason. Don't try to reason with the zombies, Mike. This is legit advice from scientists here. It presents a massive dysfunction of the language circuits in the brain, so the zombies can't understand what they're saying. Here's another piece of advice that might be interesting. Zombies wouldn't be able to recognize faces, so we should try to mimic them. That's like in the movie Zombieland. How many zombie movies have I seen in my life?
I was just going to say
Bill Murray.
You just read my mind.
Bill Murray did that. of course, then one of the people shot him because they thought he was a zombie. So maybe that's not the best idea. You would be eradicated with the zombies.
That's your whole survival guide is that movie. It lists all the rules for you.
So we need to watch Zombieland and play this game and read this report by actual scientists how to survive a zombie apocalypse. This is legit, by the way. These are legit scientists talking about steps and what a zombie outbreak would look like and what the zombies would do.
It's kind of terrifying that this is legit.
I'm flabbergasted. Okay, we are coming up on hour 2 of Beyond Reason Radio. This is Beyond Reason Radio, BeyondReasonRadio.com, and the Beyond Reason Radio app.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio.
Oh, we are back. We did 1 hour, and now it's a second hour of your voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. This is Beyond Reason Radio, which I usually do every Monday and Fridays exclusively online. But today we are also on News Radio 102.5 WFLA, and we are here for one more hour. And a lot of this hour, believe it or not, by the way, I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, and I'm joined by executive producer, Mr. Michael Formasano. So this hour, I'm going to focus a lot on, well, not a lot, some, on the good and the bad from Donald Trump. Because a lot of people get on me because I'm very critical of him. Now, a lot of people's complaints about Donald Trump are his tone and his radical things he says. And I have some problems with that. But you know what my biggest problem with Trump has been, which I don't hear enough criticism of? But my biggest problem with him is he's not a conservative. He's not a small government guy.
Very, very true.
He's practically a moderate Democrat in a lot of cases. And my biggest problem with him is he's flip-flopped on a lot of issues, and it's hard for me to trust that he will be as conservative as he now says he is.
But it's okay, Mike. He apologized.
That's true. Yeah, he apologized. So it's all good.
We're good. Now. Slate's clean.
But I'm fair, and he has had a pretty good week. He had a bad couple weeks the week before, but he has had a pretty good week. And one thing that he did this week, which I won't play any audio, but he went to Milwaukee after the riots there. He went to Milwaukee, and he talked about not only that we need law and order, but he talked about how the Democrat Party has failed the black community. And, one of my biggest problems with the Republican Party is that they have not been really willing to reach out to the black community enough. Can you imagine? They just assume the black community's lost. And I just can't. I don't think that, especially after Obama. Because now that that's over, that threshold's over, you can't tell me that 100% of blacks, they all think the same way. They all want the same things. They all believe in big government. No, that's not how it works. They're individuals just like we are individuals. And I believe a lot of them can be convinced to join our side, can be convinced to join the Republican Party, can be convinced to become conservatives. But the problem is, in a lot of cases, the Republican Party has lost. The Republican Party has lost a lot, has not tried hard to reach out to them. I want to talk a little bit about facts when we talk about Milwaukee, because Trump went up there and he said, look, he reached out to blacks. He said, if you want a better life for your community, for your children, for your grandchildren, vote for him. And while I'm skeptical of that, because I'm skeptical that Trump's actually a conservative, he says he's willing to do it. But let's look at some other things here. The Milwaukee riots. This is what's so crazy about all this. And there's a great article from Larry Elder in the Conservative Review. After the death of a young black man by a Milwaukee police officer, riots, looting, and fires followed. In one instance, as a gas station burned, people were watching chanted Black Power. Local news reported that the 23-year-old suspect was not only armed, but that he also defied orders to drop his gun. The Milwaukee police chief refused to identify the officer involved, but did not say that he was black. At one time, such a fact would suggest that racism and police brutality were not at play. But as the death of Freddie Gray, a black man who died after being transported in a Baltimore police van, shows us not necessarily. Think about this. Of the 6 officers involved in Gray's arrest in van transportation and who were prosecuted, 3 were black. In fact, just weeks before the death of Freddie Gray, a White House task force praised the Baltimore Police Department, as well as its black chief, for implementing national best practices for police and training and use of force reforms. In Baltimore at the time of Gray's death, the number 1 and number 2 heads of the police department were black. Most of the command staff and rank and file officers are people of color. The mayor of Baltimore is also black, as are the majority of city council and the state attorney who brought the charges. 4 of 6 officers were tried, and in each case, the state failed to obtain convictions. What's the point here? The point is we keep making this all about race. The point is we say it's whites against blacks, that blacks are treated so horribly by police, yet the heads of the police department were black, yet some of the cops were black, yet the leaders of the city were black. Maybe it's not about race. If there is a problem, maybe there's something deeper going on. But we can't be honest anymore about this subject. Let's look to Milwaukee now. Conservative Review continues here. As to Milwaukee, a city with a population of approximately 600,000, it is 40% black and 37% non-Hispanic white. Yet of its 146 homicides last year, 84% of the victims were black, and most of them were killed by other blacks. The nearly 150 murders constitute a 50% increase over the number of homicides just 5 years earlier. The point is, of course, is that killers of blacks are overwhelmingly other blacks. At 13% of the population, blacks commit nearly half of the nation's homicides, and almost always the victim is black. Old people tend not to kill, nor do women and the very young. This means 3% of the population, black men from 15 to 44 years old, commit nearly half of the country's homicides. This isn't me ranting against blacks or anything. I think racism is the stupidest thing ever conceived by man. It makes no sense to judge someone purely based on the pigmentation of their skin. We're all 99.9% the same, all human beings. There is no evidence whatsoever that genetically blacks are inferior than whites. There's no evidence of that. So this says that there's a deeper problem here. And in order to help fix this problem, in order to help deal with this problem, we have to be honest about the problem first. Instead, we are being divided by Black Lives Matter, and I talked about the actual organization, not the social media movement, but the actual organization, the website. I've talked about the problems with them. They're all political. It's all political. And frankly, they have communist goals. So we are being divided for politics. And it keeps going over and over again. Larry Elder continues on here, and I think he makes a great point. When it comes to this, and I've noticed this a lot, perception seems to be reality, as I've noticed a lot, and I've talked about a lot on this show. We're all about perception now, especially in the social media world. We're not willing to have a conversation. We're not willing to look at the facts. Somebody said facts. This is what he said here. Facts don't matter. It doesn't matter that over the last 47 years, according to the CDC, there has been an almost 75% decline in the number of blacks killed by cops. 75% in the last 47 years. You wouldn't know that. It doesn't matter that compared with blacks, twice as many whites are killed by cops. It doesn't matter that according to economist John Lott, black teens commit murder at 9 times the rate of white teens. Cable news reporters seem oblivious to the rates of offending. It's as if they believe that 13% of the population's black should commit 13% of the crime, or institutional racism must be at play. But when you look at the facts, but like you said, facts don't matter. It's not the case. This is as silly as assuming that since non-Hispanic whites are 62% of the population, they should comprise 62% of the NBA. Then he makes the point that I've made over and over and over again on this show. And I'll make it again. Or I'll let him make it. Maybe I'll believe him over me. The reason that Democrats beat the drum of racism is simple: votes. In the case of the media, it must be ratings. But it's also, by the way, it is ratings. And it's not necessarily nefariousness. It's easy ratings. To spark racial controversy is instant ratings, easy ratings. That's why they do it. Trust me, I understand media. But it's also something else. Our major media are run by large corporations. What's the upside for them in criticizing those who believe that racism remains a major problem in America? Telling blacks to calm down, examine the facts that they are not victims, that racism is no longer a major problem in America, and that the real problem is the breakdown of the black family is not a recipe for profits. It is an invitation for protests by activists. Thought I'd give you some facts on that. We're never going to have a legit conversation. And then there's no doubt that racism still exists. There's no doubt that in a lot of cases, blacks still have a problem with police. But when we're talking about blacks being killed by police, the facts just don't show it, as I've said before. And it's getting so ridiculous that when a black is killed by a black police officer, they're still saying racism. That doesn't make any sense. How illogical is that when you really think about it? It shows that there's something else going on here. It's a political problem. And Trump went there and he was right in noting out the problems there. What do you think about this? 407-916-5400. You can text to 23680. You can comment on Facebook Live or on the Beyond Reason Radio app as well. When I get back, I'm going to talk a little bit more on the good and bad of Donald Trump this week and some Beyond Reason politics. You are listening to Beyond Reason Radio here at BeyondReasonRadio.com and the Beyond Reason Radio app and News Radio 102.5 WFLA.
Download the iHeart Radio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Now, back to Beyond Reason Radio.
Yes, this is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I do the show every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. at BeyondReasonRadio.com. And now we're doing a special edition of the show right here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. And I thank you all for joining us today. So I promised I would talk about this. The good and the bad from Trump this week. And actually, I'm pretty critical of Trump, mostly not because of his tone, believe it or not. Not because of his bad hair or whatever, but because he's not a conservative. And what really bothers me is when true conservatives don't hold him to that standard. They say they're conservatives, but then they ignore their conservative principles when it comes to this one man. And that's what drives me crazier than anything. Even more than Trump himself. But Trump had a good week. I thought his speech on immigration and foreign policy was really good, really strong. This whole idea that we should just let everybody in without vetting them at all, this whole idea from any part of the world, before the 60s, we never did that. And every other country in the world vets people before they let them in. And we have tests for citizenship. We should have some reasonable vetting for immigrants. We have a culture to protect and a society to secure. And everyone's making it out, he just hates Muslims. Well, his initial Muslim ban, I said, was beyond reason. I hated it. The idea that we're just going to ban all Muslims from entering the country was ridiculous. But his whole policy on banning them from certain countries where there is a lot of terrorist activity, by the way, he borrowed that policy from Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was the one who really came up with that. That's okay. So he had a good week there. I talked about him actually naming the enemy, radical Islam. I talked about him actually saying we need to fight the ideology. I talked about that in the first hour. If you missed any of the show, you can check the podcast of it later. That was good. I agree. Now he was reading from a teleprompter. You can say what you want. One of the biggest problems with him is trust. So that was another good thing. Him going to Milwaukee, making that speech there, and him today going to Louisiana when Obama's still on vacation, even after all the criticism of George Bush when Katrina hit. Now they have major floods there again, and Obama's nowhere to be seen, but they don't care. They don't criticize him for that. Well, Trump showed up, and I'm going to tell you, that's smart politically. Whatever you think about Trump, that's smart politically. I'm sorry. It makes him look good. And he really didn't say a whole lot. He praised the first responders there. He helped, hand out stuff and saw what was going on. He looked presidential. So I'm going to be fair here. A lot of people think I'm just anti-Trump, but I'm going to be fair when he does something that I agree with. So that was the good of Trump. I've talked about it here. I've talked about it on the morning show a lot. But every time he does a lot of things good, he does one thing or two things that's bad. A lot of people praise Trump when he hired Steve Bannon as his new campaign CEO. And by the way, there was big news today that Manafort is out as campaign chairman. So they really are revamping. And that's because he was losing in the polls. There's no doubt about it. You can say the polls don't matter all you want. To Trump and the campaign, the polls matter. And they proved it by their actions this week. But Manafort's out, and I guess Steve Bannon's the campaign CEO. Now, I've never, ever heard of a campaign CEO. I don't know if that's a common thing, but I've never heard of that. It's interesting. We have a CEO, a chairman, a campaign manager, all these different things. But a lot of people praised his decision of hiring Steve Bannon, who was the head of Breitbart News, as his campaign CEO. So I decided, and a lot of people will disagree, but I decided to find audio here. I found some audio of the former editor at large at Breitbart. He knew Bannon, and he actually left Breitbart because of Bannon and because of the direction that Breitbart was headed into. The more we look into this guy, the more I'm not excited about this guy. In fact, this guy worries me a lot. And we can't just praise him. Oh, he's a rock-solid conservative. No, he's not. No, he's not. Ben Shapiro's a rock-solid conservative. His news site, The Daily Wire, is fantastic. One of the first sites I go to now. Really good. Much better than Breitbart. And I'm going to talk about the problems I've had with Breitbart recently. But Ben Shapiro knew Bannon, and him and a lot of other people left Breitbart because of Bannon. Breitbart, obviously founded by Andrew Breitbart, who died, unfortunately, before the last election. By the way, Andrew Breitbart hated Donald Trump. But Ben Shapiro was asked on MSNBC about this new guy, and this is what he had to say about him.
Well, Steve is a very volatile character. I mean, he's somebody who I'm not sure there are a lot of people who have dealt with Steve who have not been screamed at by Steve, but, that's sort of beside the point. Steve really is just a mirror image of Trump. The Titanic seems to be going down, and Trump is looking for the nearest mirrors so that he can make sure that his hair looks good for the cameras. Breitbart has been a Trump Pravda site, as I said when I quit back in March, for months now, and Steve Bannon was at the head of that, all the while presumably maintaining to a lot of the people he was working with that he was not, in fact, working with or for Donald Trump. It's worthwhile mentioning here that Kellyanne Conway, who seems like a genuinely decent person. Kellyanne Conway was the spokesperson for the Mercer family. The Mercer family was the lead investor in Breitbart, and they are also presumably putting some money into a Trump super PAC. So that has something to do with what's going on here. When it comes to what Bannon's going to do for the campaign, I think that Bannon tends to be a Svengali figure who looks for the nearest political celebrity, latches onto that political celebrity, rides the political celebrity like a horse until the horse collapses beneath him, and then moves on to the next political celebrity to take advantage of. I don't think that it's top priority for Bannon that Trump win. I think that he's already achieved his goal simply by being put this high up in the Trump campaign. If Trump wins, then he gets to be in the White House, and he gets all the perks, and I get audited by the IRS, presumably. And if Trump loses, then Bannon just moves along with Trump and the Breitbart site, which has grown exponentially over the last few months thanks to their Trump support and thanks to pandering to the alt-right, and they build a new media empire together. That'd be my speculation in the last.
Robert Costa, what is...
So, it's so disappointing to me that Breitbart has grown because of their Trump support. And he talked about pandering to the alt-right. That's a lot of the conspiracy theory, anarchist, a lot of times racist right, honestly. But I got to tell you, now Shapiro is a never-Trumper. It has been for a while. I am not a never-Trumper. Doesn't mean I'm for Trump either, but I'm not a never-Trumper. I'm going to vote for the person who is best, and I don't know a lot about Evan McMillan, and I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton, and I'm not voting for Gary Johnson. But I think he made a lot of sense here. Breitbart, people are saying, this is the new media. He's getting involved. Breitbart doing so well. I got to tell you, as a conservative, I am not a fan of that site anymore. 2 reasons why I'm really not a fan of that site. One is because they became so pro-Trump, it was so obvious, which to me made no sense, because the founder of the site, Andrew Breitbart, he has to be rolling in his grave over this, couldn't stand Trump. Knew he wasn't a conservative, knew he was a con man, and they just totally abandoned that. And that all started when Bannon came in and took over. So that's the first problem I've had with Trump. He's ruined that site, a lot of it, Bannon has. The second issue I've had with Breitbart is there's just, frankly, every time I go to that site, and maybe the computers I use here at the station are not fast enough, it is so glitchy. They have so many ads and so many pop-ups and so many pictures and everything going on that every time I try to go to that site, I can't get anything to load. I can't read anything. I can't use anything. And I go and I'm just not finding the information that I used to like on that site. And it used to be such a great site, especially for conservative news. And everyone's like, this guy's rock solid. It's not conservative anymore. This is my big issue. That we're willing, and this is an example of a news site, a conservative news site that's also willing to go away from its conservative principles to grow its business. He said it's grown exponentially. So they're doing it for money, for power, and they've gone against their principles as well to get on the Trump train. And I think Ben Shapiro, he knew Bannon, had a lot of concerns about the guy. And by the way, like I said, his new site, Ben Shapiro's new site, The Daily Wire, is a much better site. I love that site. I go to that site all the time. But it just amazes me how we've now created that divide. And I'm wondering where it's going to go. Trump had a good week. It's probably not because of Bannon. It's probably because of the new campaign manager. But I thought you should know that. Because I've heard people say, as soon as this goes, oh, this is great. This means he's going to be more conservative now. And I'm like, no, wait. Watch out. I'm still a little worried. And honestly, the issue I'm having is I kind of agree with Ted Cruz, what he said at the convention, vote your conscience. It's really hard to vote my conscience and pull that lever for Trump. The Mike said that's why he's not going to do it.
That's exactly why I won't do it.
And, I understand the whole Supreme Court. I talked about on the show, is it immoral to not vote for Trump? I understand the Supreme Court argument. I understand Hillary's worth. I understand worse. I understand gun control. I understand all that. I understand Obamacare. But do you know in Trump's the book he had in 2000 when he was going to run as the Reform Party, he had an idea for healthcare reform. And his idea was to create government-sponsored exchanges. Sounds familiar, right? It's Obamacare. And this is the issue I keep going over and over again. The issue isn't Trump's tone with a lot of people. It's that they don't trust him. He could say all the right things to a lot of people, but they don't trust that he's being honest about it.
The reason he isn't like Obamacare is because he wanted to call it Trump Care.
Oh, that's it.
Match the tower, match the casino, the plane.
So, there you go. I have an interesting story, by the way, which I'm going to get into the next segment about healthcare. And another prediction that I made a long, long time ago is coming to fruition. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I thank you all for joining me on this special edition of Beyond Reason Radio here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA, and we will be right back.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime. If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio.
Yes, and I do this show on Facebook Live as well. So like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio, and we are there as well. You can follow me on Twitter, by the way, at Beyond Reason R. That is Beyond Reason and the letter R. And I'm always posting good stuff up there for you anytime, in my opinions as well, which you know you want. You know you want, because I'm right. Just saying, because I'm the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, joined by executive producer, Mr. Michael Formisano. So in the last segment, I was talking a little bit, I ended the thing a little bit about healthcare and Obamacare. And nobody has detailed the problems with Obamacare more than I have. And I found something from the Washington Times that got me thinking, and it's something that I kind of predicted. But first off, it turns out that this week, Aetna, one of the nation's largest health insurers, said it would withdraw from 3/4 of the states where it offers Affordable Care Act exchange plans. 3/4 of the states, because they're losing tons of money off of it. Following in the footsteps of United Health Group and Humana, which they reduced choices as well because of money. But she points out, and it's something I've been saying, yet the president himself doesn't seem too worried. No formal comments have been given about the insurer's withdrawal, and the administration just a few days ago released data showing the Obamacare markets were stabilizing. So why no major freak out by the Obama administration? It's because the goal wasn't Obamacare. And all you have to do is look at Bernie Sanders for this. But I agree with this. And so, my friends, she says, we're now in that transition period. Obamacare was a step towards single payer, or a step towards at least full government health care. The Affordable Care Act does not work in its current structure, Raymond Farmer, the top insurance regulator in South Carolina, told Politico. Companies are leaving the marketplace for a reason. They don't leave the marketplace if they're making a profit. So profits will be demonized and the government will have to swoop in and rescue. This is what I've been saying. What's going to happen with Obamacare, and it's already happening, is they were going to say it didn't go far enough. That's what Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are saying. They want to add a public option. They want to add Medicaid for all plan as a part of Obamacare. Because Obamacare was deficient itself. It's too expensive. It has all of these problems. So instead of saying, hey, maybe we should go back to a free market solution, you're going to have the politicians on the left say it needs to go farther. We need to expand it even more. And they're going to keep expanding it, and they're going to keep expanding it, and they're going to keep expanding it until we have practically a government-run single-payer system. And it's sad that this has not really been as big of an issue in this campaign that it should be. So there you are. Something, once again, that I predicted. Now, we were talking about the good and bad with Trump earlier in the show. Talked about a lot of good. Talked about one bad thing. I'm not a fan of his hire of Steve Bannon. Well, there was another thing he said this week that kind of left me a little worried. Got this from the Washington Examiner, but it's been everywhere. Trump on the Clinton Foundation. This is what he said. There's been a lot of investigations on the Clinton Foundation because basically they used it to pay for influence. So people, while she was Secretary of State, they would pay into the foundation, which is basically handing Hillary Clinton money for special favors from the government. I've detailed that before. But Trump was on with Hannity on a town hall, and he said what we should do. Donald Trump urged the American people to give Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation the benefit of the doubt. when it comes to questions surrounding the money they receive from foreign countries. Now, why would the Republican nominee tell us to give Hillary Clinton, the Democrat nominee, the benefit of the doubt of an obvious corrupt Hillary Clinton foundation, which has been detailed forever? Trump went on, you don't want to do that, and if they knew about that, that would be one thing, and I assume they knew about it bigly, but certainly they know about it now, so maybe they can give the money back. Talking about things that were being bought, influenced, bad things that they were going to. Wait a minute, they knew about it, Hannity interrupted, because that has been Saudi Arabia's practice for years, but Trump continues on giving excuses for the Clinton Foundation. Now, why do you think that is? I'll tell you exactly why that is. I guarantee you that in the past, Donald Trump has donated to the Clinton Foundation. He's been friends with the Clintons. So if they really dig deep into the Clinton Foundation, I bet you they'll find that Trump himself has donated to the Clinton Foundation. I don't have any evidence of that. I don't have insight into the Clinton Foundation. It just seems very suspicious to me that he's trying to, give them the benefit of the doubt, he says. Excuses to the Clinton Foundation. I don't understand that, especially when you're in a campaign. Why? Something isn't right there, and I bet you it's because he's donated himself to the Clinton Foundation. We'll see if that comes out. We'll see if that actually happened, but if you've listened to this show before, how many times have I said things and then it comes out to be true? All right, we're going to get into stories so beyond reason, they left you flabbergasted. This is Beyond Reason Radio here at BeyondReasonRadio.com and the Beyond Reason Radio app and News Radio 102.5 WFLA.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio. Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com.
Yes, this is your voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. This is Beyond Reason Radio, and if you missed any of the show, I will be posting the podcast. The best way to get the podcast is just download the Beyond Reason Radio app. You can find that at Google Play or the Apple App Store. Download the show. You can catch the live show and the podcast there. You can also catch it on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app, and you can listen to News Radio 102.5 WFLA, which we are broadcasting tonight. Special edition of Beyond Reason Radio on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. And you can catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast there as well. Just search Beyond Reason Radio. So, Mike.
Yes, sir.
It's the end of the hour.
That it is.
That means it's your favorite part of the show.
So excited.
You ready?
I'm ready. You ready?
I'm ready.
There are a lot of stories that are beyond reason, but some stories are so unbelievable, so crazy, so unexpected, that there is only one way to describe Yaffee's reaction. Now for stories so beyond reason, they left Yaffee flabbergasted.
Yes, they did leave me flabbergasted. And this one, believe it or not, is actually a Florida story.
That's weird.
Yeah, nothing weird ever happens in our state.
No.
No. But this one is just, it's kind of frustrating, actually. I found the report here. I have the news audio here of the report from Southern Florida of a guy who killed a gator. Now, you're not going to believe what happened to this guy after he shot a gator.
Now, I know our phones were blowing up this week over this story.
Yeah, on the morning show, yes. So, you can't kill gators. I don't know why.
Interested. Or
bears. Although more people are okay with the gators than the bears, which, whatever. I don't understand. But let's play the audio here from that report from the local NBC affiliate where this happened.
Yeah, good evening, Josh. That's the way Reggie Blanton sees it. He believes this very large alligator was imminently about to attack his horses, so he shot it. And then things got crazy.
I don't know if he came out of that pond. There's another one over there by a fence.
Reggie Blanton is 74 years old and has lived in Florida all his life. He knew something was wrong when horses in this field started acting very strangely.
I took my gun with me when I went out there because I didn't know what the hell was out there.
That's right.
Blanton saw an alligator just a few feet away from the horses.
I think he was after the mini horses.
He took out a 9mm and shot it.
I shot at him 4 times, and they said I hit him 3.
Blanton's son-in-law arrived and walked over close to the alligator.
Whenever he raised up after my stepson, it looked like he was shot out of a cannon. I had never seen nothing like it.
The next thing Jack Hildreth saw was teeth.
It was a burst of lightning, like it was just a surprise.
The gator clamped down on his leg. A teenager pulled Hildreth to safety. The alligator, nearly 10 feet long, is shown in this photo taken after he was killed by the FWC. Arriving sheriff's deputies surrounded the alligator.
There was like a dozen cops out there with high-powered rifles.
The next surprise came later when a deputy arrived arresting Hildreth and Blanton. A report from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission cites Blanton for unlawfully killing the alligator.
And if I'd have just left him alone, he'd have had one of the horses.
Yeah, Florida law says no person shall buy, sell, take, possess, transport, or import any American alligator except by permit, and that's why the FWC says he was arrested.
So this guy, he sees an alligator about to attack his horses. He shoots the alligator to defend his property.
You don't shot that gator.
He then they go to the gator. The gator then bites his I guess it was his son, I think. And the officers come and they're pulling their guns, about ready to shoot him. The FWC, Florida Wildlife, kills him, kills the gator. You think that'd be the end of the story. You'd think it's like, oh man, this gator was a real problem. Luckily, you were able to do this and defend yourself.
But this is Florida.
But this is Florida.
So it can't be that simple.
Of course not. So what does he do? He kills the gator, and they arrest him. Now, if you're a deputy, you would think, okay, in this instance, maybe we shouldn't arrest the guy. Maybe he was just defending his property. This is when laws just get, we drown in laws and laws just get stupid. The whole point of the laws of not shooting gators is to prevent gator hunting, to protect the gator population. That was the purpose of the law. But he does it not for hunting. He's obviously not out hunting the gator. He does it to protect his property and his horses. And because the FWC, and it's another bureaucracy, and it's another thing, they, of course, have to arrest him for doing this.
Of course.
And take him to jail. And his son, and when you don't even see the video, his son has like a cast on his leg and a neck brace and all this stuff. Obviously, the gator was dangerous.
Now, if the gator had killed the horses, would the gator be arrested?
Yes, they would get handcuffs and they would take the gator to jail.
I mean, based off of the logic that you just told me,
that's true.
The Florida.
Well, not only that, but what if the gator did come and kill the horses or try to kill him, and then they shot the gator? Would he have still been arrested? Because under law, he still killed the gator.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't believe this. It's just like, who at the FWC is thinking, okay, well, we have to arrest him? Or the sheriffs or the deputies or whatever. Oh, well, yep, he broke the law. We have to arrest him. Like, they can't use common sense.
We got to make an example out of him.
For protecting his property. And, of course, it happened in Florida. And, of course...
flabbergasted.
Yes, it left me flabbergasted. Okay, I have one more flabbergasted story before we end, Mike.
Okay.
You're going to love this story.
All right.
In the first hour, we ended with a flabbergasted story about how scientists were worried about zombies. So we're worried about the zombie apocalypse. Okay, but let's assume the zombie apocalypse is never going to happen. Can we? I
would love to assume that.
But we're ready if it does. But what's the other apocalypse that we worry about a lot? Robots.
Oh, jeez.
We're afraid of the robots coming to get us,
We've
right?
talked about robots before on this show, and how the intelligence, the level of intelligence they're getting now is starting to get a little scary. Definitely something to watch.
Well, I've said on this show, in the morning show, that any robots out there, I'm on your side. I'll be an ally. I give in. I'm not going to. I've seen Terminator, all of them. The last one was pretty terrible, but I still saw it. And it was still, they're taking over. We might as well just side with the robots.
If Arnold Schwarzenegger shows up at any point, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm finding myself a remote location.
What if he shows up to protect you because you're going to save the world, Mike?
If he shows up at all, things are going down, and I'm out of here.
Where are you going to go?
I'm going to find a place in Alaska. Going to hide out in the remote.
They'll find you in Alaska.
Oh, no.
You think they don't care about the cold. They're robots.
What about islands? Maybe I'll find myself a nice island.
There you go. I don't know how you're going to get there.
Me either. I'll swim.
You really didn't think this through, did you? You're a swim? All right. Okay.
I need more time.
We need a plan.
I need a plan.
All right. So I found this story from The Sun from the UK. China is building cruise missiles powered by killer artificial intelligence. Death drones. Terrifying new fire and forget weapons will use robotic technology to steer themselves towards a target. So it's not just a missile using lasers or whatever. This missile will have its own artificial intelligence. So that's how it will steer towards targets. It will just know, it'll use its own intelligence to know where to hit. Dubbed death drones, the missiles will use artificial intelligence to guide themselves in flight and potentially even choose new targets. Oh, man.
Okay, I will attack all humans.
Yeah, we talked about that a while ago, about they built a lifelike robot that said, I will attack all humans, very casually. Director of the General Design Department of the 3rd Academy of China Aerospace Science and Industry Corp, say that 10 times fast, told China Daily that his country was leading the world in the development of artificial intelligence weapons, AI weapons. He said, we plan to adopt a plug-and-play approach in the development of new cruise missiles, which will enable our military commanders to tailor-make missiles in accordance with combat conditions and their specific requirements. Moreover, our future cruise missiles will have a very high level of artificial intelligence and automation. They will allow commanders to control them in a real-time manner, or to use a fire and forget mode, or even to add more tasks to in-flight missiles. These AI cruise missiles are a type of killer robot, the name given to weapons which can guide themselves into battle and to choose targets. How you feel about that, Mike? You feeling?
I'm stressing.
You feeling good? We got the zombie apocalypse. Maybe if we side with the robots, the artificial intelligence, we can get the robots to kill the zombies.
That sounds like a great plot for a movie.
Robots versus zombies?
Yeah.
Instead of cowboys versus aliens. That is a great idea.
Pretty much.
We need to copyright that right away. We need to patent that. Robots versus zombies.
In a world where robots have taken over, Zika has fled the streets, and zombies rise from the dead.
And the humans
this summer
are caught in the middle. Robots versus... I like it. That's great. That is a great idea, actually. But China's developing missiles that are basically have a mind of their own. and will choose, they'll choose their target, and they'll just, and they can change their mind in the air. So they'll be like, you know what? I don't want to choose this country. I'm just going to go over to this one. Mm-hmm. Hey, look, a hospital. Let's bomb that. Hope they make them smart. You should see Mike's face out there.
Take out I'm not prepared for this.
I think those scientists that came up with the how to defeat a zombie apocalypse, they need to get together again and come up with a solution how to beat the robots when they start taking over.
We have a survival plan. Now we need a AI survival plan.
Yeah. I don't know which one I fear the most.
Fear the Walking Dead.
All right, you have been listening to Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. Special edition here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. I really thank you for joining me. On Monday, I'll be back online exclusively at BeyondReasonRadio.com at 8 p.m. Go over stories so Beyond Reason that leave me flabbergasted, Beyond Reason politics, all kinds of stuff. And we'll have a good weekend, everybody. And I will talk to you next time. I look inside.